side of the station next to the air train building. The second is Scoot Service in Oyster Bay. We recognize these services are still being designed. There's work to be done on them, but we ask that in the course of doing that design, that the rider experience be kept a paramount part consideration in the planning. One of the struggles of Long Island Railroad riders is change at Jamaica, and every change in weather like this, with our snow and cold and rain, is a struggle for some folks, and Scoot services do threaten to make that worse. We want to make this as smooth as possible. We want to make this work as smoothly as possible, and we realize you do have operational constraints, and we realize that doing this right will make the railroad run better for everybody. We just ask that you keep in mind what it's like for the rider that has to get off one train and get to another one. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Henderson. Mr. Murray Bowden, last of our public speakers.
Good morning, all. Welcome to 2013, and welcome to the new MTA. The new MTA, this book now is labeled pages 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it will be the last time I pick up a paper copy here. Like the chairman, I will have an iPad in front of me, and I expect that every one of you will have some electronic device in front of you to do this. Any questions I have that I might have asked from this podium before will be emailed to you all. And I expect answers. I know enough people here that I don't have to stand up and repeat things that are in your paper. If you haven't read it the night before on your electronic device, whatever it may be, this is not the place to ask extended questions. The place to ask extended questions are by email. That's where they belong. The important business of this committee and the MTA will be done here quickly. The days of the extended meeting are over. If you haven't figured it out, think about it. It has been a pleasure to come and learn my trade here. I don't carry a cane today because I figured out how to rejuvenate myself a little bit. In December, I fell off the age cliff and I realized I can't do what I used to do. It's a new world. I'm enjoying every minute of it. And I'm certainly enjoying the changes at the MTA.
Thank you, Mr. Bowden. That completes public comment. The minutes of the December 17th meeting are on page 3. Are there any comments or concerns regarding the minutes? If not, motion to approve. Second, all in favor, aye. Helena.
Good morning, members of the board. I'd just like to thank everybody on our newly constituted Long Island committee, and appreciate that the acting chair is here, Freddie. And Mitch, you are back now as the chair of the Long Island Committee, and we want to express our appreciation over the past year for board members who have been covering both issues. I want to assure you that Metro North and Long Island Railroad will continue to work very closely on joint procurements and joint efforts. I'm pleased to give you our ridership report this morning. The Long Island Railroad finished the year 2012 with an annual positive growth in ridership. While it was small growth, I'm going to note it was only 0.7%. We had a very steady climb in ridership for about 13 months. The impact of Superstorm Sandy, of course, is what limited the growth results to the 0.7%. Nevertheless, full year 2012 total ridership increased to 87.7 million passengers versus 81.2 million passengers for 2011. Without Sandy, I think we would have, we were on a trend that would have really helped us progress with almost a 4.2% increase from 2011. but the storm was significant and it did impact our service tremendously. I want to comment on the Barclays ridership. Long Island Railroad has worked closely with Forest City since the beginning of the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, and our collaboration has paid off very significantly with ridership increases in the last quarter of 2012. Ridership to and from the Atlantic Terminal during events at the Barclays Center has increased, and I have to say, you know, because the numbers were low, the percentage looks fabulous, 334% increase in ridership. The average gain for each event is approximately 3,300 new customers. Our marketing campaign, including print ads, brochures, station posters, and onboard media, has been effective in getting Long Islanders to use the Long Island Railroad when traveling to the Barclays events. So we look forward to that. That's very exciting. That leads right into a comment I want to make about our service enhancements. There is a service staff summary in our package. On March 4th, we'll have additional train service, including Atlantic Terminal Brooklyn service, which will be extended to 2 a.m. That will result in 8 additional Brooklyn trains with half-hourly service in both directions, and we are sure that that will further reinforce the ability to use the Long Island Railroad to get to those entertainment events and, of course, those Knicks games, and someday in the future, the Islanders. On the Ronkonkoma branch, 3 new westbound trains will be added to the schedule. Montauk branch, I'm very pleased to say that we are able to close some major gaps in the schedule with service restoration. The 5:12 p.m. train, a popular train from Hunters Point, will go back in service to Port Jeff. And then Long Beach, which has been so devastated by Superstorm Sandy and very appreciative of the service we've been able to give them. I'm pleased to say a morning and p.m. train will be restored, a 6:09 in the morning, a 5:40 p.m. train. You know, of course, we're going to continue to have some off-peak and weekend schedule adjustments based on track work and East Side Access work, and those are listed in that staff summary as well. I want to address one very troubling issue that Long Island Railroad's been confronted with, and I have to take a moment and thank both Barry Kluger, the MTA Inspector General, and Mike Cohen with his investigative unit, the detectives. We've been cooperating with the MTA Inspector General, the Nassau County District Attorney's Office, and you know, Police Chief Mike Cohen, after receiving information that some employees allegedly were stealing scrap metal as well as new metal from yards and shops. As you probably saw, there were arraignments of 15 employees in the signal repair workforce that have been implicated in this whole scheme. These employees were suspended with pay on Wednesday, January 23rd, and they were suspended without pay on Friday once the arraignment took place. You know, we will move with all diligence on the disciplinary action against these employees upon completion of the criminal proceedings, including, you know, with pension forfeiture. We will use everything we have to let these employees know that they have violated the public trust and that we will not in any way tolerate theft from our company, because it's theft from the public. In addition, we're working with Barry to improve yard security. At the shops where scrap metal is stored, we're going to use increased video surveillance, and we'll purchase secure storage bins. We're already working on those procedures, and I, again, have to thank Barry's team. He has some experience in this that he's bringing to the forefront for us. I do need to mention an incident that was also, unfortunately, an accident, a train car accident that occurred on January 22nd. As you know, it resulted in the fatality of 2 individuals in the car. The crew consisted of locomotive engineer Chris Kuta, conductor Robert Lyons, and assistant conductor Gwendolyn Webb. Of course, this was just a terribly tragic accident. There's indications that the driver went around downed gates. There was observations that the individual may have been on the telephone, cell phone. I want to commend the actions of the crew. They immediately went into emergency braking action. The locomotive engineer, Chris, stayed in the cab even though flames were bursting because he wanted to continue to hit the horn. He was very concerned about subsequent crossings and debris flying until the train stopped. The crew really did an outstanding job. We have to thank Mike Cohen again, just great response and assistance. And the Brentwood Fire Service did an outstanding job as well. We are trying very hard to develop a new campaign, safety message on grade crossing safety. And we'll be working up some materials that we'll share with this committee, trying to reach a different audience, maybe through YouTube type videos, to express how dangerous going around gates is. People think that they're looking, one way at a stop train, go around the gates and aren't looking the other way as the train comes in the other direction. But again, under very tragic circumstances, our crew did do an outstanding job.
Alina,
yes.
can I just add to that?
Yes.
Just to comment, the crew up and above, and accidents of these type are very, very, it's tough for these crews to go through them, and this crew did an excellent job. And I would hope that the board, the committee, and the public recognizes that, there's good and bad in employees in a lot of ways, and I would hope that the good action of the thousands of employees on the Long Island Railroad are also appreciated.
Vinnie, thank you very much for those comments. And I also want to say, that we have so many dedicated employees at the Long Island Railroad who do an outstanding job. I couldn't have been more pleased when both Barry and District Attorney Kathleen Rice wanted to point out the valuable work that all the employees do, and that we can't let the actions of a small group color the attitude toward everybody at the railroad. Okay, at this point, I'm going to ask we have a slide presentation. Yes.
Yes,
I have two questions. First, you mentioned that the engineer stayed in the cab to continue hitting the horn. Is there not some device by which he can automatically set the horn so it continues to operate in that kind of an emergency? And if not, why not?
My understanding is no, there isn't such a device. I would look at whether there is a type of emergency horn device that we could use. There are specific FRA regulations about horns, but under an emergency that is life or death, I'm sure automatic use of a horn, might prove valuable. So let's look at that in the, as something we should examine as a safety improvement.
Second question relates to the copper thefts, which are not new, as the former borough president of the Bronx will tell you. Do you hallmark in any way the copper tubing, wiring, or the like that is used by the Long Island Railroad so that it facilitates detection?
We do have some markings on it. The difficulty is, as I understand, and Mike knows more about it than I do from the investigation, but sometimes it gets stripped away on the insulation. And it's not marked specifically on all of the wire. Mike, will you?
Exactly. So sometimes they would strip down the copper before they sold it. On the outside of the copper, and that the rubber or whatever it was covered with was clearly stamped Long Island Railroad. But we took efforts to circumvent that. We had samples of what the copper was from Long Island Railroad, and then we would buy it back from the scrapyard.
May I respectfully suggest that we take a good hard look at the possibility of hallmarking those utilizations of copper wiring, tubing, and the like in terms of hallmarking, not just at Long Island Railroad, but elsewhere. It has proven to be a major deterrent for stealing copper in apartment houses and the like.
Thank you very much. Okay, with that, we're going to...
Before you move
Yep.
on, can you once again reiterate, we always get, whenever an unfortunate accident, like the grade crossing accident occurs, we all get questioned again as to why there is a space there for cars to go around. And, and that the gate does not go across the entire crossing, it only goes across half the crossing, and the gate on the other side goes across the other half of the crossing. My understanding is that that is done deliberately for a variety of other reasons. I was wondering if you could amplify that for a second.
Yes, the FRA has looked at the issue of gate length and gate, positioning. One of the issues when you have solid gates across both sides of a crossing is that if a car does get stuck on the grade crossing, it gives the driver the impression that they can't go forward, even though the gates would break if a car hit them. So the design has been to, leave a space so that a car could maneuver around if they found themselves on a grade crossing when the gates came down. I will say that we are, very, concerned about, gate construction. We do have one location with 4 quadrant gates where they are all 4 down. We are looking at the length of gates as well, and trying to get better safety data on are there alternatives. And we would work, of course, with the FRA on that. But you are absolutely correct. The idea is to give the impression, go forward, step on the gas and go. You can go on the other side of opposing traffic.
Okay.
Okay, I'm just going to go quickly, only because we're going to make up some time here. I did want to just give a quick overview of Long Island Railroad's double track project. We launched our information centers over the last 2 weeks, one in Ronkonkoma and one in Farmingdale. And go to the next slide. The mainline track between Farmingdale and Ronkonkoma consists of 17.9 miles. 12.6 miles are single track, 5.3 miles are double track segments. The single track operation is fragile and it results in below average on-time performance for Ronkonkoma branch customers. It is our main line and it's a single track operation. Trains can get stuck behind one train. You can have equipment failures, signal failures, customers needing assistance, and you get a tremendous backup. It also prevents us from providing solid service in both directions. Which is key, I think, to some of the economic development initiatives on Long Island. The electrification project between Hicksville and Ronkonkoma was completed in the 1980s, and I'm very pleased to say it laid the groundwork to accommodate a future second track by installing all the additional ductwork for traction power system and sizing the substations to facilitate a second track. I had the occasion in our 175th anniversary to talk to Robin Wilson, who was president at the time that the electrification project was done, and he said, "Helena, I left it for you." And I said, "Robin, I'm going to finish it." The second track can be built completely within the Long Island Railroad's existing right-of-way. That's very good news. There's no commercial or residential takings that are required. The right-of-way is sufficient. Okay, and there at the bottom you see a schematic. We're showing the phase 1, which is, I've lost my pointer here. I'm going to go quickly. Right there. Ronkonkoma to Central Islip. So under the first phase, the entire project will be designed and the first segment will be built, Ronkonkoma to Central Islip. Next page, I've mentioned the customer and community benefits. It's exciting to be able to contemplate half-hourly off-peak service east and west, be able to increase the reverse peak in intra-island travel opportunities. There are a number of developments along this segment. Ronkonkoma is in the midst of discussing a commercial residential development. MacArthur Airport is looking to build ridership that can travel by rail. We have the Heartland project that's also on the books. Wyandanche Ride Rising, which we've already been participating in, and this board has approved some land transfers involving that project. We also look at Republic, which is at Route 110 and ripe for development in terms of commercial and residential property development. So from an economic development perspective, it's just very exciting to be part of transit-oriented development on Long Island and to see this important segment really be in play in so many different places. And of course, from a construction perspective, we will create hundreds of jobs on Long Island over the next 5 years. And, you know, a boost in the arm for the local economy is just terrific. There's always a multiplier effect from construction jobs, and we're excited to be a part of that. Once again, let me go to the next one. I'm on fast track here. Schedule, again, I mentioned phase one. We began in July 2012. We will go to a design, build, award, and construction contract in November 2013. We are very hopeful that we'll obtain the funding in the next capital program for the 2015 capital program that'll allow us to do additional preliminary design work and construction in April 2016, with the goal of completing the double track, this 12.5 miles, by December 2018. And you can see where we've laid out the funding. It's an exciting opportunity for Long Island Railroad and for all Long Islanders. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions? Chuck?
It seems to me, in light of the testimony of Mr. Clift and his submission, that it might be a good idea if perhaps the Auditor General took a look at the cost of this and see if it makes any kind of sense or if there are savings that are possible.
Well, I've asked the railroad to provide Mr. Clift and others with their estimate of the cost. Obviously, these are estimates until we know what a construction firm will bid on them, and that has not gone out other than
Right.
the first bid in that regard. CPOC obviously also has this project on its list because I've been to CPOC meetings where it has been discussed, and whatever other opportunities we have to make sure we get the most bang for our dollar, we should do so.
Better still,
Yep.
with Dr. Haradny Chanu present, perhaps at some point he could take a good hard look at the costs as the expert who will tell us whether it flies or doesn't even flap its wings.
On that issue, I'd like to hear from the independent engineer in CPOC regarding the costs of the project. I think that'd be a good review,
Okay.
at least there. And I'd love to see the scoping and the cost too, because Mr. Cliff isn't the only one who raised this issue. Some people on our council actually raised it, and it would be good to take a look at it, because I mean, as you stated, the substations are done, some of the ductwork is done. It's just some questions about, you know, phase one is from Ronkonkoma to Islip.
That's correct.
That's right, and then phase two would be the other
Yes.
section all the way to Hicks. Okay,
No, not to Farmingdale.
to Farmingdale.
Not to Hicksville.
I'm sorry.
Right.
Farmingdale.
Farmingdale.
We have double track from Farmingdale to Hicksville.
Yes.
By the way, I don't gainsay the importance of doing this work, but let me just ask you a question because it provides an example of a point I've made before. We have a capital construction operation within the MTA, and it does a superb job. Why is it that they do not do this task so that we have some focus on it?
Well, that is a decision made by higher than my pay scale, which is 0 at the moment here.
Well, then perhaps it's a matter that we ought to
but-
take up at the governance committee's next meeting.
That's, you know, those issues, MTA capital construction are obviously given some projects to do, including Second Avenue Subway and the what have been called the mega projects, for lack of a better descriptive term. Other projects on both of the railroads and the subway are handled by the agencies themselves. So how this one got to one instead of the other was obviously a decision made by a former time, but obviously that issue can be relooked at.
All I am doing is I was reminded earlier this morning by an elderly gentleman that we're now in the 21st century. We ought to move forward.
That's not a problem. We will ask them to look at it again. Because I don't think anybody cares who does it. Anybody who cares about it is that it gets done as quickly as possible and as efficiently as possible. Alina, do you have anything else?
We just wanted to extend our congratulations to Metro North on the 100th anniversary of Grand Central Terminal. You know, the writing about it this week, the sponsorship program they've been doing for a year-long celebration is just extraordinary. Their stewardship of the Grand Central Terminal, which is one of the just most iconic structures in all of New York City, has just been tremendous, and it's, you know, part of Metro North's heritage. They've just done a great job taking care of that terminal. We look forward to the day we get there, and we know that they'll continue to really enhance that structure. And that's it.
Okay. Michael, MTA Capital Construction.
Good morning. This is our, I'm sorry, the first meeting of the new Long Island Committee, as well as the beginning of 2013. And I would like to provide an overview of the ESA accomplishment to date. We, in the past, may have talked about some of these projects individually. However, I would like you to see how all this construction comes together. In addition to that, I want to talk about our plan for 2013, as well as an overview of the steps we're taking to address the high bids received in the Manhattan Tunnels and Cavern fit-out work last October. In Manhattan, we have actually dug 6 miles of new tunnels that were mined about 140 feet below ground, and to date, we are about 30% done with the finishing of these tunnels. In addition to that, we have dug 4 foot-long escalator shafts. There are built starting in GCT, and they're going down 180 feet to install the 17 new escalators that we expect to connect the Long Island Railroad concourse with the mezzanine below. There are 2 huge caverns that we have dug. There are 1,200 feet long caverns, about 4 football fields, not including the end zones, as well as a 65 by 65, that means height and width. Will be finished to accommodate a total of 8 tracks and platform on an upper and lower level. In addition to that, while we mucked that, we took out a tremendous amount of muck, 23.5 million cubic feet, and we figured it out that whatever muck we took out, we can put about a foot of muck on top of the over 800 acres of the Central Park, just to give you a size of how big that is. In 2010, actually, we are digging a Q-tip in Queens. It looked like a lake at the time, and then we drained it, and this is, again, a 660 feet long, 80 feet wide, 80 feet deep. And what we did, we created the ability to actually dig 4 tunnels, 3 above, 1 below. And this is under the busiest passenger rail interlocking, basically in North America, with almost 800 trains. You can see, I think this is the New Jersey Transit right there. And this was successfully completed. There also, this tunneling that took place is about 2 miles long, and they are now ready for installation of the inverts as well as the bench and track and signals. This was all done in a precast fashion. One of the things that I've mentioned in the past was tunneling on the Northern Boulevard. This is 120 feet long, 80 feet wide, and they're about 15 feet below the IND. That actually was completed, and you're seeing now, I mean, when I say completed, we broke through. We're now putting the steel around it, and that will be all done. This is an error here, I think it's 80 feet, but this will be all done sometime in April. We expect to actually have a number of presentations at various technical conferences, as well as we'll put in for award. This is a one-of-a-kind things, and this is truly exciting for the mining community. Looking forward, we expect to continue on 12 active contracts in Manhattan and Queens with a value of $3.5 billion. So far, we committed 60% of the East Side Access total construction budget, and by March of 2013, we will in fact complete the underground excavation for tunnels and caverns. So that will be for us a milestone. An update on the Manhattan tunnels and cavern fit-out. In October, we received bids for the Manhattan tunnels and caverns that was significantly over the budget and had to be rejected. The scope included building structure within the two caverns, final concrete lining of the Manhattan tunnels, rehab of the 63rd Street tunnel, and construction of the bench wall in Manhattan. Moving forward with the Manhattan tunnels and cavern fit-out work, we have had extensive discussion with all bidders to better understand the risk-cost drivers that brought the price where it was. We have started discussion with General Contractor Association and its members and staff, as well as the unions on the way to improve construction efficiencies, and we are making progress. Moving forward with the Manhattan work, we are working together with the IEC and OCO to finalize plan to repackage the work in the way to reduce risk while minimizing cost and schedule impacts. Some budget and schedule contingency will be consumed. Unclear at this point how much, and we'll complete the review by March and present to CPAC. 2013 for us will be a critical year for the East Side Access. 6 major contracts valued at $2.2 billion will be completed. The Manhattan tunnels, the Manhattan caverns, 44th and 50th Street vent plants, the Queens Ground tunnels, and the Northern Boulevard crossing. We'll also commit over $1 billion in new work, so by the end of the year, ESA will have committed 75% of its total budget. The contract that will come online are 2 of East Side Access 3 system contracts, the westbound reroute in Harold, and portion of the Manhattan structure and caverns fit-out. With that, I completed my presentation.
Any questions for Michael? Ira?
Yeah, it occurred to me some time ago, and also in watching this presentation, that it's pretty deep, this new station, and I was wondering. I'm sure there's emergency backup power, there's lights, but if people are stuck down there, how would they get up to the surface? Would they have to walk, or would there be enough power?
They're stuck.
There's no power. Power goes out. You have people
we have
down.
backup power for
the escalators?
Yes.
Okay. Are they lithium-ion batteries?
It's not as I know. Boeing is not the
For another time. No.
Yes, and we'll be able to give you a whole presentation
but if you
on
need that
emergency.
we can
right.
give you an emergency
Yeah.
presentation for emergency evacuation. Yes.
Thank you. Any other questions for Michael? Chief, police report.
Good morning. For the year, we finished down 2012 down 12%. We were down in virtually every category, with the exception of just a slight uptick in burglaries. For December, we did have 3 robberies compared to 2. One in Huntington, one in CI, and one in Copeg. The Huntington and CI ones we closed out with an immediate arrest. The one in Copeg is still under investigation. And I just want to thank Helena and her staff and Barry Kluger and his staff for the cooperation with the copper theft takedown. Without it, it would not have been brought to such a successful conclusion. So I thank you. Any
Questions for the chief? Thank you very much. Information items.
Yes, we have 2
Strategic
information.
Investment Planning Study.
Yep. 2 in the book, page 25, and the March timetable changes and track work program at page 53. Both, I think we briefly mentioned already the timetable changes I gave you in my opening remarks. Are there any questions? We'd be happy to answer.
Yes, Chuck.
Page 46, the Penn Station Gateway Project and the Vision Study. I wonder if you could set aside a few minutes at some early date so that we can understand where you are, where you're going with this, what the timetable is. I have a couple of questions just to illustrate why I think it's important.
Well, I think the Penn Station Vision Study and the Gateway Project studies are not Long Island Railroad studies.
No, but as I
Penn Vision
understand it,
is.
Helena
Penn Vision
has
is.
been working actively
Right.
for some period of time, trying to direct it in the appropriate direction.
Yes,
And that's what I wanted to get on the table,
I
so
would,
we
I
know.
would agree. We could either
Yes.
do it today, or I would prefer to put it
yeah.
on the agenda, have it on as a specific agenda item. I think it's that important to do.
May
I
I
would
make a
agree with-
suggestion that will facilitate its, my interest in it, obviously, comes from
You go
parts
north, we go.
You got it. One of the things you could do, if you have the time, is to try and project what you think the traffic coming from Long Island into the city of New York will be in 2019 or whenever East Side Access is ready, and where the load can best be discharged, whether it be at Grand Central or at Penn Station, so that we can get a better fix on what this is, because while you have been able to increase ridership, it doesn't look like you're going to be able to consume all the space you're going to be provided. But then again, those numbers may help us take a look at that.
I would suggest that we do that and other items that are related to that issue, and have Helena come back in the next couple of
That'd be
months and make a
terrific.
full presentation.
And if you
to the
want to do it
committee,
offline, I'm available.
because I think it's important for everybody to understand the benefits and ramifications of the project to all of our entities in that regard. So I would
And all of our boroughs.
and everybody. Yes. So Alina,
Very
if we
good.
could put that on the agenda next couple of months, that would be
Terrific.
helpful.
We will schedule that.
Ira, did you want to add
Yes,
something?
a brief comment about that. I just think we can't underestimate the constraints of Penn Station, the tunnels, and how that presently impacts the inability of the Long Island Railroad to maintain its stated goal of 95.1% on-time performance. And I think that if we spend all this money on East Side Access, we should see how that will lighten the burden. And if we can meet that goal, 95.1% on-time performance and increase capacity, I'm all for, allowing Metro North to use Penn Station. But I don't want Penn Station to become, in 2029 as worse or as overcrowded as is today, even
Well,
with.
I'm not sure that's possible to make it worse.
Exactly.
But be that as it may,
Anything could be made worse.
be that as it may, I think all of these issues are important. They're all related to each other. And as I said, I would, Alina will come back in the next couple of months and make a full presentation on the issue to everybody in that regard, because there are lots of consequences and lots of issues that have to be discussed.
May I make one further suggestion,
Yes.
perhaps with, in conjunction with the real estate group, as to what thinking they have in terms of possible improvements of Penn Station
Yes.
and surrounding areas to fit in on the real estate side, because Penn Station, especially when you compare it with Grand Central, is really a hovel.
No, we don't.
Putting
We
it
don't.
nicely.
We don't compare it to Grand Central. We compare it to things much lower than that. That's the only way it can have any kind of opportunity at all to be compared to anything.
If I was still building
So-
commissioner, I would condemn it.
I understand. But these, as I said, all of these issues are related to each other. We'll get to them in a formal presentation.
And I think that's a serious-
Having said that about Penn Station, the ridership at Penn Station is tremendous, and
Yes.
and to say that you can't compare the building the way it looks.
No.
Right.
But the usage it gets is
Absolutely.
tremendous. It's a railroad
Right.
station.
And that's
Grand
why-
Central's a railroad station.
And that's why, in Chuck's
First.
regard, the improvements
real
that are being
estate, yes, we
the
should talk with
improvements
Jeff
that are
Rosen
being
about
made to
this.
Farley and all of those issues around Penn Station have an impact on Penn Station directly and should be part of this entire discussion. I would
Well,
agree.
we will put something together.
Okay.
We're delighted to do that. I don't want anyone to have a misimpression. We are the lead in the Penn Vision with Amtrak and New Jersey Transit. On Gateway, Amtrak is the lead, but we will come back and give you a full briefing. I think it'll be a terrific discussion.
Good.
Thank you very much. I'm now going to ask
The only thing
for...
I would add. Well, go ahead, Ira. Do you have one?
One other thing, separate from Penn Station.
As I was gonna do
it was-
something. Go
and
ahead.
Maybe we'll do this separately too. The shop at Richmond Hill, the diesel shop, and I just and that was put on hold. The renovation of it, I believe.
Richmond
point-
Hill had some shop reconfiguration. Let me talk to you about that offline. I
Okay.
gotta find which
And
one
what
it
the
is.
long-range plan of
Right.
it, I just, because that was taken out of the capital program, a renovation of it, and then there was a
No,
decision.
no, I think we've got a confusion on shops. Richmond Hill is standalone and a different shop than Morris Park.
Okay,
So
but-
we'll give it to you
Okay,
offline.
yeah, the
Good.
the
Yep,
diesel
yep.
issue
we
is what I'm
understand.
really concerned
Okay.
with.
The only thing I wanted to add is while I am greatly supportive of adding 3 new westbound trains from Farmingdale in the off-peak, my preference, of course, would be that they start in Ronkonkoma for those of us who live further east than those in Farmingdale. If you start in Ronkonkoma, you get to Farmingdale. If you start in Farmingdale, you don't get to Ronkonkoma. We've had that discussion before.
Hence my double
Hence the
track.
double track
Yes.
issue, yes.
And, okay, at this time, I'm going to move quickly to
Procurements.
the, no, we got the one action
Oh.
item. I'm supposed to ask for
Oh, the committee work
approval of the
plan.
committee work plan.
Page 54, are there any items, additions, or suggestions? We will add to this the Penn Station Vision Study. Alina will give
And
us a date.
Gateway, good.
And Gateway, as soon as that. Any additions or subtractions to this? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay. Now we will go to procurements.
Good.
Page
Okay.
65.
There are 4 procurements in this month's package. The items in the competitive section are as follows. The first one involves a request to use an RFP, declaring competitive bidding impractical or inappropriate, and it's a joint procurement on behalf of Metro North Bridges and Tunnels for acquisition of a automated vehicle location and monitoring system. The second in the competitive section involves the acquisition of spectrum that would be used by Metro North for our PTC efforts. I know many of you heard the briefing at the Metro North Committee meeting on it, but for those that weren't at that meeting, I have to say this has just been a terrific effort. I've got to compliment Rich Gans, Anthony Bombase, and Dennis Mann. Just a terrific effort between Metro North, Long Island Railroad to acquire spectrum on the market, and we are almost there. There's going to be a little bit of fine tuning on making sure we've covered all of Metro North's territory, and we'll be able to move toward a spectrum management plan. But it's been a terrific effort to get that done. As you know, we need it for PTC. Then we have a 10-year competitively negotiated personal service contract with Interlogic Solutions. This is for the centralized Jamaica Incident Command Center as we fit out that technology there. And then finally, I have to request approval for 15 contracts with bus companies throughout Long Island where we call them for both scheduled and emergency bus services over a 3-year term. So with that, we would ask for approval of those actions.
Are there any questions or comments on any of those items? Chuck?
Page 67, one question.
Yes.
Is it contemplated that the information that would be capable of being gathered as a result of this equipment could be or would be used in disciplinary proceedings against employees who may be off the beaten path?
That's correct. In fact, this information proved invaluable in the copper theft investigation. So we are already using it. We think as we go forward, we now know how to even better fine-tune the type of information we want.
Has that been negotiated with the relevant unions?
I have to look at that issue, Chuck. I'm not sure that we
Madam-
think it requires negotiation.
Madam President, unless it is
Yeah.
negotiated with the unions, I will vote against this proposal.
But it's already on current vehicles.
I will vote
Yeah.
against this proposal.
That is his-
Okay,
that is his
okay,
choice.
so we'll,
Okay.
okay.
Any other questions on any of those 4 items? Motion to approve, second. All in favor? Aye, opposed? Chuck, on number 1? On number 1. Somebody who's taking, has that. Okay. Okay. Page 75. Capital construction procurements.
David,
Capital Construction has 7 procurement items this month for your consideration. They are all competitive, and they total $69,941,728. The items begin on page 80. For the sake of time, I will not go over each item individually and request that the board, that this committee vote to move these items to the full board.
Any questions? Somebody has that, 5, 6, and 7. Any questions on any of the other items? Motion to approve, second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay. Helena, do you have any, I think that's it on MTA Capital Construction. Right.
Correct, that's it.
Status of operations, page 88.
At this time, I just want to make a correction to a statement I said earlier. Mark signaled me that I misspoke on ridership, annual ridership. I said 87.7 million, when in fact the number is 81.7 million. We haven't seen 87 million since 2008. Mark is reminding me.
But
I
we will
misspoke.
again.
We want to see it
We will
again.
again.
In the interest of time, I would say that the reports are in the book for operations, finance, and capital program, and we would take any questions, but I'm trying to get us back on schedule.
Are there any questions on operations or finance from anyone? And I think you were all emailed the December numbers also, so you have those in that regard. Any questions or comments? Okay,
We did it.
I believe that completes the meeting. Motion to adjourn. See you on March 11th. Thank you all very much.
All right. Now Mark won't yell at me.